The early morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty streets of Colorado City, Colorado, when Nora Langley stepped off the stagecoach with nothing but a small valise and the weight of her family's rejection pressing on her shoulders. The year was 1878, and the mining boom town bustled with activity despite the early hour. Nora clutched her remaining possessions close, the letter of dismissal from her father still folded in her pocket, its words cutting deeper than any physical wound ever could. The journey west had been her last hope after the scandal that had destroyed her standing in Boston society. At 22, she was considered damaged goods by the elite families of New England, all because she had refused a marriage to the wealthy but cruel son of her father's business partner. Her refusal had cost her everything: her home, her inheritance, and her family. Exhausted and overwhelmed, Nora stumbled forward, the unfamiliar weight of her simple traveling dress dragging at her limbs. She had never known hardship before, had never been taught how to survive without servants and the protection of her family name. Now she was alone in a frontier town with barely enough money to last a week. "Watch yourself, miss," a gruff voice called as a wagon nearly clipped her. Nora jumped back, losing her balance on the uneven ground. The valise tumbled from her grasp, spilling its meager contents into the street's dust. Fighting back tears of frustration, she knelt to gather her things when a pair of worn leather boots stopped beside her. Looking up, she met the most startling blue eyes she had ever seen, set in a sun-bronzed face beneath a wide-brimmed hat. "Seems like you could use a hand, madam," the stranger said, crouching down to help her. His voice carried the distinctive drawl of the West, but held a gentleness that contrasted with his rugged appearance. "Thank you," Nora murmured, embarrassed by the situation. "I'm not accustomed to traveling alone." The man gathered the last of her items and handed them back to her. "Name's Adam Owens," he said. "You look like you've come a long way." "Nora Langley," she replied, accepting his help to stand. "From Boston." Adam's eyebrows rose slightly. "Boston? That's quite the journey. You meeting family here?" The question, innocent though it was, struck at her raw wound. "No," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have no one here." Adam studied her for a moment, noticing her fine, if slightly rumpled clothes, the quality of her valise, and the lost look in her eyes. "Well, Miss Langley, Colorado City ain't always kind to newcomers, especially ones on their own. You got somewhere to stay?" Nora shook her head, feeling foolish. She had come west with only the vaguest plan: find work, make a new life, escape the shame. Now, standing in the reality of the frontier, she realized how unprepared she truly was. "There's a boarding house for respectable ladies just down the street," Adam said, nodding toward a white two-story building. "Mrs. Peterson runs it. Tell her Adam Owens sent you her way." "I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Owens, but I don't want to impose." "No imposition," he interrupted with a slight smile that transformed his weathered face. "Just looking out for a newcomer. That's the way we do things out here." As they walked toward the boarding house, Nora felt the curious stares of passers-by. A refined Eastern woman was still something of a novelty in the frontier town, especially one arriving alone. Mrs. Peterson turned out to be a stout woman with graying hair and sharp eyes that sized Nora up immediately. "Adam Owens vouching for you means something in this town," she said after introductions were made. "But I run a respectable house. No gentlemen callers in the rooms, and I expect my boarders to be in by 9 each evening." "Of course," Nora agreed quickly. "I assure you, I'm very respectable." Mrs. Peterson named a weekly rate that made Nora's heart sink. Her remaining funds would cover only 2 weeks at most. Adam seemed to sense her distress. "Miss Langley's looking for employment as well," he said. Any ideas who might be hiring? The older woman considered this. The mercantile might need help, or perhaps Dr. Harrison, his nurse, just left to get married. She eyed Nora critically. You have any skills, girl? Nora straightened her shoulders. I'm educated. I can read, write, and do arithmetic. I speak French and can play the pianoforte. She paused, realizing how useless these accomplishments might be on the frontier. And I can sew, she added lamely. Mrs. Peterson snorted. Fancy education don't count for much here, but reading and writing might get you somewhere. The doctor could use someone who can read his medical texts and keep his books straight. I'll take her round to see him tomorrow, Adam offered. For now, she probably needs some rest after her journey. Once shown to her small but clean room, Nora finally allowed herself a moment of privacy. The tears she'd been holding back spilled over as she sank onto the narrow bed. Her father's last words echoed in her mind. You are no longer my daughter. You have disgraced our name, and I wash my hands of you. She wept until she had no tears left, then splashed cold water on her face from the basin on the dresser. Looking in the small mirror, she barely recognized herself. The sheltered daughter of Boston society was gone, replaced by a tired young woman with reddened eyes and an uncertain future. The next morning, Adam arrived as promised. Nora had done her best to make herself presentable, wearing her simplest day dress and pulling her chestnut hair into a modest knot at the nape of her neck. You look more rested, Adam commented as they walked through town. In the daylight, Nora could see that Colorado City was a growing settlement, with a mix of sturdy wooden buildings and a few brick structures lining the main street. Mining equipment and supply stores dominated the businesses, along with saloons that even at this hour had patrons coming and going. Is this a mining town? She asked, trying to understand her new surroundings. Adam nodded. Gold and silver mostly. I've got a small claim myself, though I spend more time running cattle. Got a ranch about 10 miles outside town. He gestured to the mountains rising in the distance. The real mines are up in those hills, but the money flows through here. Dr. Harrison's office was a tidy building with a shingle announcing his services. The doctor himself was a middle-aged man with spectacles and a thoughtful manner. He listened as Adam explained Nora's situation, omitting any mention of family troubles. I do need assistance, Dr. Harrison admitted, but I can't pay much to start, and I'd need someone willing to learn quickly. Patients don't wait for niceties. I'm a fast learner, Nora assured him, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. And I'm not afraid of hard work. The doctor studied her hands, soft, uncalloused, clearly never having known real labor, but he also noted the determination in her eyes. We can try for a week, he decided. You'll help with organizing supplies, keeping records, and if you prove capable, assisting with patients. It was more than Nora had dared hope for. Thank you, Dr. Harrison. I won't disappoint you. As they left the doctor's office, Adam seemed pleased. That's good fortune. Harrison's respected in these parts. Working for him gives you standing. I can't thank you enough for your help, Nora said, genuinely touched by this stranger's kindness. Adam shrugged, adjusting his hat against the bright Colorado sun. Like I said, we look out for newcomers. Especially ones who seem a bit lost. He hesitated. I need to get back to my ranch, but I'll be in town again end of the week. Would it be proper to call on you then? Maybe show you around a bit more? The offer surprised her. In Boston, there would have been formal introductions, chaperones, strict protocols. But this wasn't Boston, and those rules seemed meaningless now. I would like that, she answered honestly. Adam tipped his hat with a smile. Until Friday then, Miss Langley. The week that followed tested Nora in ways she had never imagined. Dr. Harrison was kind but demanding, expecting her to memorize the locations of supplies, learn the names of medications, and master his filing system immediately. Her hands, unused to physical labor, developed blisters from cleaning instruments and bandages. The hours were long, starting at dawn and often extending into evening when emergencies arose. Yet for all the challenges, Nora found herself thriving. There was satisfaction in being useful, in earning her own way. The patient's miners, cowboys, townspeople treated her with a rough courtesy that held none of the false politeness of Boston society. On her third day, a miner was brought in with a severe cut to his arm. Dr. Harrison, seeing Nora's pale face at the sight of blood, had given her a choice: leave the room or assist. She had chosen to stay, holding bandages and fetching water while learning valuable lessons about wound care. "You've got grit," the doctor had commented afterward. Most ladies from the East would have fainted. By Friday, Nora had earned her first week's wages, enough to pay Mrs. Peterson and have a small amount left over. She had also earned something perhaps more valuable: the beginning of self-respect. When Adam called that evening, Nora was tired but oddly content. They walked through town as the setting sun painted the mountains in shades of gold and purple. "How are you finding Colorado City?" Adam asked. "Different," Nora admitted with a small smile. "Everything is rawer here." "More honest somehow." Adam nodded. "That's the West for you. A man or woman is judged by what they do, not where they came from or who their family is." The mention of family caused Nora's smile to falter. Adam noticed immediately. "I've said something wrong." "No," she assured him quickly. "It's just, family is a difficult subject for me." They had reached a small park at the edge of town, and Adam gestured to a bench. "Want to sit for a spell? Sometimes talking helps, and I'm told I'm a good listener." Nora hesitated, then sat down. She had kept her story to herself all week, but the weight of it pressed on her. "My family is one of the oldest in Boston," she began slowly. "My father was a banker with connections to all the right people. I was raised to make an advantageous marriage, to be the perfect society wife." "But that wasn't what you wanted," Adam guessed, his blue eyes surprisingly perceptive. "I wouldn't have minded marriage itself," Nora clarified. "But the man my father chose was cruel. I had seen how he treated his servants, his horses. I knew what kind of husband he would be." She took a deep breath. "I refused the match, publicly." Adam whistled softly. "I imagine that didn't go over well. It caused a scandal. My father was humiliated. The man's family withdrew important financial backing from our bank." Nora's voice grew smaller. "My father called me to his study afterward and told me I was no longer his daughter. He gave me enough money for passage west and told me never to use the family name again." The memory still had the power to hurt, and Nora found tears welling in her eyes. "My mother didn't even say goodbye. My sister was forbidden to speak to me. I was simply erased for refusing to marry a man you didn't want." Adam's voice held controlled anger. "That's not right, Nora." It was the first time he'd used her given name, and somehow the familiarity was comforting rather than presumptuous. "My family disowned me," she sobbed, the dam finally breaking on her composed exterior. Adam hesitated only a moment before placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Then you'll be part of mine," he said softly. The words were simple, spoken almost instinctively, but they pierced Nora's heart with unexpected warmth. She looked up at him through her tears, not quite understanding. "I don't mean anything improper," he clarified quickly, looking slightly embarrassed. "Just that out here, we make our own families sometimes. People who look out for each other, who care. I'd like to be that for you, a friend, someone you can count on while you find your feet." It was such a genuine offer. free of the calculations and manipulations that had defined relationships in her former world, that Nora could only nod gratefully. They sat in companionable silence as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Finally, Adam stood and offered his hand to help her up. "I'll walk you back to the boarding house. Mrs. Peterson will have my hide if I keep you out past her curfew." As they walked back through town, Nora found herself studying Adam more closely. He wasn't handsome in the polished way of Boston gentlemen, but there was something compelling about his weathered face, the laugh lines around his eyes, the strength evident in his movements. He carried himself with the easy confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin. "Will you tell me about your ranch?" she asked, genuinely curious about his life. Adam's face brightened. "It's not much yet, 100 acres with a small herd of cattle, a decent house I built myself, good water from a year-round stream. My pa started it before the war and I took over after he passed. You live there alone, just me and a couple of ranch hands. Miguel's been with me 5 years, best wrangler in the territory. Then there's Johnny, who's young but learning fast." He chuckled. "And about a dozen half-wild cats that keep the mice down." Nora tried to picture it, so different from the townhouse in Boston where she'd grown up, with its formal parlors and army of servants. "It sounds peaceful." "It is, mostly. Hard work, but good work." They had reached the boarding house steps. "I've got business in town tomorrow, too. Would it be all right if I called for you around noon? Thought you might like to see more of the area." "I'd like that," Nora replied, surprised by how much she meant it. The next day dawned bright and clear. Nora had Saturday afternoons free from the doctor's office, a small mercy that allowed her to do personal errands and rest. She dressed in her most practical outfit, a navy blue skirt and white shirtwaist, with sturdy boots that she'd purchased with her first wages. Adam arrived precisely at noon, riding a handsome chestnut gelding and leading a gentle-looking mare. "Thought you might enjoy a short ride," he explained. "Nothing too challenging, but it'll let you see a bit more of what's around Colorado City." Nora hesitated. She had learned to ride in Boston, but always side saddle, always in controlled environments. "I'm not sure Sally here is the gentlest horse in the county," Adam assured her, patting the mare's neck. "And we'll take it slow." Something about his quiet confidence bolstered her courage. "All right," she agreed, approaching the horse cautiously. To her surprise, Adam produced a pair of split riding skirts from his saddlebag. "Borrowed these from a neighbor. Thought they might be more practical than your city clothes." The consideration touched her. She changed quickly in Mrs. Peterson's back room, emerging feeling both scandalous and liberated in the practical garment. Adam helped her mount, his hands strong and sure at her waist as he lifted her into the saddle. They rode at an easy pace out of town, following a well-worn trail that wound through stands of aspen and pine. The mountains loomed closer now, their majesty taking Nora's breath away. Wildflowers dotted the meadows in splashes of yellow and purple. "It's beautiful," she said, drinking in the scenery. "So vast." "That's what got me when I first came west as a boy," Adam replied, riding alongside her. "The space of it makes a person feel small, but in a good way, like you're part of something bigger." They stopped beside a clear-running stream for a simple lunch. Adam had packed bread, cheese, dried apple slices, and a canteen of cool water. Sitting on a sun-warmed rock, Nora felt more relaxed than she had in months. "Tell me more about Boston," Adam said. "I've never been further east than St. Louis." Nora thought about her former home, the brick townhouses, the common with its stately trees, the harbor filled with ships from around the world. "It's beautiful in its own way, cultured, established, history everywhere you look," she sighed. "But also rigid, especially for women." Adam listened attentively as she described the strict social codes, the limited options for even wealthy women, the emphasis on appearances above all. "Sounds like a cage with gilded bars," he observed when she finished. The description was so apt that Nora laughed. "Yes, exactly. A very comfortable cage, but a cage nonetheless." She plucked a wildflower and twirled it between her fingers. "What about your family? You mentioned your father passed away." Adam nodded, his expression growing more serious. "Pa came west after meeting my mother in Missouri. She was half Cherokee, which didn't sit well with his family back in Kentucky. They made their own way out here during the first silver rush." Nora was surprised by this revelation. Adam's features showed little evidence of native heritage, perhaps a certain angularity to his cheekbones, the straight black hair beneath his hat. Seeing her reaction, he smiled slightly. "Most folks don't notice unless I tell them. Ma died when I was 12, fever took her. Pa raised me alone after that, taught me ranching, prospecting, how to make my way. Lost him 5 years ago to a mining accident." "I'm sorry," Nora said softly, understanding now why he had responded so kindly to her own story of family rejection. "That must have been difficult." "It was," Adam acknowledged, "but he left me with the ranch and good memories. Can't ask for much more than that." He cleared his throat, changing the subject. "How are you finding work with Dr. Harrison?" "Challenging," Nora admitted, "but rewarding. Yesterday I helped set a child's broken arm. The mother was so grateful she brought me fresh eggs this morning. Harrison's lucky to have you. Word around town is his practice has never been more organized." Nora blushed at the compliment. "I'm the fortunate one. Not many would give a chance to a woman with no medical training." As the afternoon waned, they packed up their simple picnic and remounted. Adam led them on a different path back to town, skirting a ridge that offered spectacular views of the valley below. "That's my place," he said, pointing to a distant collection of buildings nestled beside a creek. "Not much to look at from here, but it's home." Something in his voice, pride mingled with longing, made Nora see the ranch through his eyes. Not just buildings and land, but a future, a legacy, a place of belonging. The next few weeks established a pattern. Nora worked diligently at the doctor's office, earning enough to cover her room and board with a small amount saved each week. Adam came to town every few days, ostensibly for supplies or business, but always making time to see her. Their friendship grew through shared meals, walks around town, and occasional rides into the surrounding countryside. Dr. Harrison proved to be an excellent teacher, patiently explaining procedures and gradually entrusting Nora with more responsibilities. She learned to dress wounds, administer basic medicines, recognize symptoms of common ailments, and keep meticulous records of patients and treatments. Colorado City began to feel familiar, the morning bustle of wagons delivering supplies, the midday quiet when miners and ranch hands were at work, the evening activities centered around the saloons, and the small theater that occasionally hosted traveling shows. Nora made other acquaintances as well. Sarah Jenkins, the young schoolteacher who also boarded at Mrs. Peterson's, Mr. Abernathy, who ran the mercantile and always saved the latest newspapers for her, and Miguel Vega, Adam's ranch hand, who came to town for supplies and shared stories of life on the ranch. It was through Miguel that Nora learned more about Adam, how he had expanded the ranch from his father's original claim, adding better stock and improving the grazing lands, how he was respected by both the white settlers and the remaining native people in the region for his fair dealings, how he had once risked his life riding through a blizzard to bring medicine to a neighboring ranch when their child fell ill. "Señor Adam, he is a good man," Miguel told her one afternoon as she helped him select fabric for his wife. But he is too much alone. A man needs familia. The implied matchmaking made Nora blush, but she couldn't deny that her feelings for Adam had grown beyond simple friendship. There was a steadiness to him, a fundamental decency that drew her like a compass to true north. Whether he felt the same remained unclear. Adam was unfailingly kind and attentive, but also scrupulously proper. He never presumed, never pushed beyond the boundaries of friendship, though occasionally she caught him watching her with an expression that made her heart beat faster. Summer gave way to early autumn, bringing cooler nights and splashes of gold to the aspen groves. Adam invited Nora to a harvest dance being held in the town's newly constructed community hall. "It's nothing fancy," he warned as they walked together after church one Sunday. "Not like the balls you must have attended in Boston." "Those balls were mostly tedious affairs full of people judging each other," Nora replied honestly. "This sounds much more enjoyable." The night of the dance, Nora wore her best dress, a deep green wool that she had altered to suit the simpler Western styles, with modest lace at the collar and cuffs. She had grown stronger during her months in Colorado, her once soft hands now capable, and her complexion touched by the sun from her rides with Adam. When he called for her, Adam's appreciative gaze made the effort worthwhile. He himself had dressed in his best, a dark suit that, while not fashionable by Eastern standards, fit his broad shoulders perfectly. "You look beautiful," he said simply. The community hall was festooned with autumn decorations, bundles of wheat, gourds, and late-blooming wildflowers. A small band played lively tunes while couples swirled around the wooden floor. Tables laden with food lined one wall, hearty stews, fresh bread, pies made with the last of summer's berries. Nora knew most of the attendees now, at least by sight. There were miners and their families, ranchers from outlying properties, shopkeepers, the banker and his wife, even Dr. Harrison, who gave her a friendly nod. "May I have this dance?" Adam asked formally as the band struck up a waltz. "You may," Nora replied with equal formality, though her heart was far from calm as his hand settled at her waist. Adam proved to be an excellent dancer, guiding her smoothly through the steps. "You seem surprised," he noted, seeing her expression. "I didn't expect," she began, then stopped, embarrassed. Adam chuckled. "Even us rough Westerners learn a few civilized skills. My mother insisted." As they danced, Nora became aware of approving glances from the townspeople. Clearly, she and Adam were being viewed as a couple. The realization brought both pleasure and uncertainty. What exactly were they to each other? Later, as they took a break from dancing to enjoy some cool cider on the porch, Adam seemed unusually thoughtful. "Something on your mind?" Nora asked. He hesitated, then said, "I've been offered a chance to buy the neighboring property. Old man Jenkins is moving back east to live with his daughter." "That sounds like a good opportunity," Nora said, trying to understand his preoccupation. "It is. Would nearly double my grazing land, and there's a good stand of timber I could sell." He took a breath. "But it would mean taking on debt, building new fences, probably hiring another hand." Nora considered this. "You're wondering if the risk is worth the reward." "Something like that." He gave her a sidelong glance. "It would mean more time at the ranch, less in town." There it was the real concern. Less time in town meant less time with her. The implication sent a flutter through Nora's stomach. "Any decision about your ranch should be based on what's best for your future," she said carefully. "That's just it, Nora. I've been thinking a lot about my future lately." Adam set down his cider, turning to face her fully. "About what I want it to look like, who I want in it." Nora's breath caught. "Adam, I know it hasn't been that long," he continued, his normally confident voice uncertain. And you might still be planning to return east someday, but I find myself hoping you won't." It was the closest he had come to declaring himself, and Nora felt simultaneously thrilled and frightened. "I have no intention of returning east," she said softly. "There's nothing for me there." Relief washed over Adam's features. "In that case, I'd like to show you something tomorrow. The ranch." "Properly, I mean, if you're willing." "I'd like that very much," Nora replied, her heart full of possibilities. The following day was Sunday, and after church services, Adam helped Nora into his wagon for the drive to his ranch. The autumn day was glorious, with clear blue skies and just enough crispness in the air to invigorate without chilling. As they left the town behind, following a well-maintained road that wound through rolling grasslands, Nora found herself imagining what it would be like to make this journey regularly, to leave town not for a visit, but to return home. The thought should have alarmed her. 5 months ago, she had been a sheltered Boston socialite whose world extended no further than her family's social circle. Now, she was seriously contemplating life as a rancher's wife in the Colorado wilderness. Yet instead of fear, she felt a growing sense of rightness. This vast, honest land had given her something Boston never could: the freedom to discover her own strength. The ranch came into view around a bend in the road, a collection of sturdy log buildings nestled in a protected valley. The main house was larger than Nora had expected, with a wide porch wrapping around 2 sides. A barn and several outbuildings stood nearby, while corrals held horses and cattle. A creek ran along one side of the property, lined with cottonwoods just beginning to turn golden. "It's beautiful," Nora said sincerely as Adam helped her down from the wagon. Pride was evident in his voice as he replied, "It's taken years to build it up, but it's getting there." Miguel emerged from the barn, raising a hand in greeting. "Señor Adam, Señorita Langley, welcome." A young man followed Johnny, Nora presumed with a shy nod in her direction before taking the wagon's horses. "I'll show you around," Adam said, offering his arm. The tour was thorough. Adam showed her the barn with its well-organized tack room and hay storage, the smokehouse where meat was preserved for winter, the chicken coop where a dozen hens provided eggs, the vegetable garden that still yielded late squash and root crops. Throughout, his commentary revealed not just what was, but what could be plans for expansion, improvements, the vision of a man building something to last. Finally, they came to the house itself. "I hope you don't mind seeing inside," Adam said, suddenly seeming nervous. "It's not fancy, but I'd love to," Nora assured him. The interior surprised her. Yes, it was simple by Eastern standards, but it was far from primitive. The main room had a massive stone fireplace, comfortable-looking furniture, and shelves lined with books. Windows let in abundant light, and colorful woven blankets, my mother's people's work. Adam explained, added warmth. "The kitchen's through there," he said, pointing to a doorway. "Then there's my room and 2 smaller bedrooms for guests, or—" He trailed off, not finishing the thought. "For children," Nora's mind supplied. This was a home built for a family. They ended the tour on the front porch, sitting in rocking chairs as the sun began its descent toward the mountains. The view was spectacular, rolling grasslands giving way to foothills, then the dramatic rise of the Rockies themselves, their highest peaks already touched with early snow. "What do you think?" Adam asked quietly. "It's a wonderful home, Adam. You should be proud of what you've built here." He nodded, but his expression remained serious. "It's missing something important, though." Nora's heart quickened. "What's that?" A woman's touch. "A partner." Adam turned to face her fully. "Nora, I know we haven't known each other that long, and your life here is just getting started. I don't want to rush you or presume anything, but I need you to know that I've fallen in love with you." The declaration, simple and direct, brought tears to Nora's eyes. "Adam, you don't have to say anything now," he continued quickly. "I just wanted you to understand why I showed you the ranch today, to let you see what I can offer, modest though it is compared to what you're used to." Nora reached out, placing her hand over his. "Adam, stop. You don't need to sell me on your life. These past months, getting to know you, seeing this country through your eyes, they've been the most honest, fulfilling time of my life." Hope dawned in his blue eyes. "Does that mean—" "It means I love you too," Nora said, her voice clear and certain. "Not because of what you can offer, but because of who you are. Because you saw me at my lowest moment and offered friendship without judgment. Because you've shown me what it means to build something meaningful with your own hands." Adam's face transformed with joy. He took her hands in his. "Nora Langley, I don't have a fancy speech prepared. I'm just a man who loves you and wants to spend his life with you. Will you marry me? Make this ranch a home with me? Let me be your family now." The last question touched the deepest wound in Nora's heart, the rejection that had driven her west, the void where her family's love should have been. Adam was offering to fill that void, not just as a husband but as the family she had lost. "Yes," she answered through happy tears. "Yes to all of it." Adam pulled her gently into his arms, and their first kiss was tender, a promise of the life they would build together. The weeks that followed were filled with preparations. Nora gave notice to Dr. Harrison, who expressed genuine regret at losing her but understood the pull of love and family. Mrs. Peterson helped her plan a simple wedding, while the ladies of the church threw a small shower, presenting Nora with handmade linens, preserves, and practical gifts for her new home. Adam rode in from the ranch more frequently, sometimes staying overnight at the town's small hotel to spend more time with Nora. They had chaperoned walks and unchaperoned conversations about their future children they hoped for, improvements to the ranch, dreams and fears alike. They were married on a bright October day in the town's church. Nora wore a new dress of ivory wool with lace at the collar and cuffs, while Adam cut a handsome figure in a new suit ordered specially from Denver. The small church was full not with blood relatives, but with the community that had embraced Nora and the ranch hands who respected Adam. Dr. Harrison gave the bride away, a role he accepted with evident pride. Miguel served as Adam's best man, while Sarah Jenkins stood as Nora's bridesmaid. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the cheer that went up from the congregation reflected genuine goodwill. A reception followed at the community hall, with food contributed by half the town misses. Peterson's famous apple pies, Miguel's wife's tamales, roast beef and potatoes, fresh bread and churned butter. There was dancing and laughter, toasts and well wishes. As the celebration continued, Adam led Nora outside for a moment of quiet. The autumn evening was cool but clear, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "Are you happy, Mrs. Owens?" he asked, the new name still sounding wonderfully strange to both of them. "Completely," Nora answered truthfully. "More than I ever thought possible when I stepped off that stagecoach 5 months ago. You know, I saw you that first day and thought you looked like a lost bird blown off course by a storm," Adam admitted, his arms around her waist. "Never imagined you'd become my wife." "God works in mysterious ways," Nora said softly. "What seemed like the end of my life in Boston was really just the beginning of something better." They returned to the party for the traditional first dance as husband and wife, then made their farewells as twilight deepened. Adam had prepared the wagon for their departure, with trunks containing Nora's belongings and wedding gifts secured in the back. Bundled against the evening chill, they set off for the ranch, their home now. The first weeks of marriage brought adjustments for both of them. For Nora, there was the rhythm of ranch life to learn, rising before dawn, managing a household without the conveniences of town, cooking on a wood stove, preserving food for the coming winter. For Adam, there was the presence of a woman in spaces that had been solely male, the compromises of shared decisions, the tender discoveries of intimacy. They weathered these changes with good humor and growing love. Nora threw herself into making the house truly their home, rearranging furniture. Hanging curtains she sewed herself, creating a parlor where they could read together in the evenings. Adam showed remarkable patience, teaching her the skills she needed without condescension, valuing her intelligence and quick learning. Their physical relationship blossomed from tentative beginnings to passionate communion. Nora, raised with Victorian sensibilities that barely acknowledged the existence of physical love, found herself awakening to unexpected joy in her husband's arms. Adam, who had known only brief encounters before marriage, discovered the profound difference between mere satisfaction and making love with the woman he adored. By the time the first snows of winter arrived in late November, they had established a comfortable routine. Mornings began with coffee shared at the kitchen table, discussing the day ahead. Adam would work with the cattle and horses, mend fences, cut firewood, or handle the 100 other tasks that ranch life demanded. Nora managed the house, the garden's winter storage, the chickens, and the accounts, putting her mathematical skills to good use tracking the ranch's finances. Evenings were their special time. After supper, often shared with Miguel and Johnny, they would retire to the parlor. Sometimes they read aloud to each other. Adam had a surprising collection of books, everything from practical manuals on animal husbandry to poetry and novels. Other evenings they simply talked, learning the details of each other's lives before they met, sharing dreams for the future, growing ever closer in understanding. The Christmas season brought a special sweetness to their new marriage. Nora decorated the house with pine boughs, dried berries, and candles. Adam cut a small tree from their land, setting it up in the corner of the parlor, where Nora adorned it with paper ornaments, strings of popcorn, and small treasures from her previous life: a silver thimble, a mother-of-pearl button, a tiny porcelain bird. They rode into town for Christmas services, enjoying the community celebration afterward. Returning to the ranch, they exchanged simple gifts: a carved wooden box Adam had made in secret for Nora's sewing supplies, a hand-knitted scarf in blue that matched his eyes, Nora's project during the quiet afternoons while Adam worked outside. The last gift couldn't be wrapped. As they sat before the fire that Christmas night, Nora took Adam's hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "I have one more present for you," she said softly. "It won't arrive until summer, but—" Adam's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "A baby, you're certain?" Nora nodded, her eyes shining. "Dr. Harrison confirmed it when we were in town. We're going to have a child, Adam." The joy that transformed his face was something Nora knew she would remember all her days. Adam gathered her in his arms, his touch gentle as if she had suddenly become fragile. "A family," he whispered against her hair. "Our family." The winter passed in peaceful contentment, the expected baby adding a layer of anticipation to their daily lives. Adam became protective, insisting on handling the heavier chores Nora had taken on, watching her with loving concern. Nora alternated between appreciation for his care and gentle insistence that pregnancy didn't make her an invalid. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," she reminded him after he objected to her carrying a basket of laundry. "Most of them while working much harder than I am." "I know," Adam admitted, taking the basket anyway. But most of them weren't my wife, carrying my child. The winter of 1878-1879 was relatively mild by Colorado standards, with only 2 major snowstorms that isolated the ranch for a few days at a time. During these peaceful interludes, cut off from town and neighbors, Adam and Nora grew even closer, finding joy in simple pleasures, teaching each other favorite games, singing songs from their childhoods, making plans for the coming baby. Spring arrived with its usual muddy exuberance. The creek swelled with snowmelt, meadows exploded with wildflowers, and birds returned with dawn symphonies outside their window. Nora's body changed too, her slender form rounding with new life, her face glowing with what the older ranch wives called mother light. Adam expanded his herd that spring, purchasing additional cattle from a rancher moving north to Wyoming. The investment stretched their finances but promised greater returns in the fall. He also hired a third hand, a quiet man named Thomas, who had experience with both cattle and carpentry skills. Adam needed as he began building an addition to the house for the nursery. Nora watched these preparations with a mixture of excitement and occasional trepidation. Her own mother had been distant, delegating childcare to nurses and governesses. What did Nora know about being a mother herself? Yet when she confessed these fears to Adam one evening, his response was characteristically straightforward. "You'll learn," he said simply. "We both will. And we'll love this child so much that the rest will follow naturally." His confidence bolstered her own. Together they would figure it out, just as they had figured out how to blend their lives these past months. In early June, a letter arrived that shook their peaceful existence. It bore a Boston postmark and was addressed to Nora in a hand she recognized immediately, her sister Elizabeth's careful penmanship. Nora's hands trembled as she opened it. 7 months had passed since she left Boston, with no word from any family member. What could Elizabeth want now? The letter began formally, almost coldly, but gradually warmed as Elizabeth explained the circumstances of writing. Their mother had fallen ill during the winter, nothing serious at first, but eventually developing into pneumonia. Now recovering but weak, she had begun asking about Nora, expressing regret for her silence during the estrangement. Elizabeth wrote that their father remained implacable, refusing to speak Nora's name, but their mother had secretly asked Elizabeth to find out if Nora was safe and well. Elizabeth had traced her through the bank that had transferred her initial funds. The letter ended with a hesitant invitation for Nora to write back, if she wished, with assurances that their father need not know of the correspondence. Nora read the letter twice before handing it to Adam, who had watched her changing expressions with concern. "Family," he said after reading it, making the words sound like both blessing and curse. "Yes." Nora folded the letter carefully. "I don't know how to feel. Part of me is angry that it took Mother's illness for anyone to wonder about me. Part of me is relieved to know she at least remembers I exist." "Will you write back?" Adam asked, his tone neutral, leaving the decision entirely to her. Nora considered this. "Yes," she decided finally. Not for Father's sake, but for Mother's. And Elizabeth's, it must have taken courage for her to reach out against Father's wishes. She placed a protective hand on her rounded stomach. "And for the baby's sake, too. This child should know they have family in the East, even if we never meet in person." Adam nodded, understanding her reasoning. "What will you tell them?" "The truth," Nora said simply. "That I've found happiness here, that I'm married to a good man, expecting a child, building a life I love." She smiled slightly. "That being disowned was the best thing that could have happened to me, though I wouldn't have believed it at the time." The next day, Nora penned a careful reply. She described Colorado's beauty, her work with Dr. Harrison, her meeting with Adam, their marriage and ranch life. She mentioned the coming baby with simple joy, not as a bid for reconciliation, but as a statement of fact. She expressed hope for her mother's recovery and gratitude for Elizabeth's letter. What she did not do was apologize for her choices or express any desire to return east. Her life was here now, with the family she and Adam were creating. Summer progressed, bringing with it the intense work of ranch life, branding calves, mending fences damaged by winter, preparing for the eventual fall roundup and sale. Nora's pregnancy advanced too, limiting her activities but not her involvement in ranch decisions. She and Adam sat together each evening, reviewing the day's work and planning for the future. Another letter arrived from Elizabeth in early July, warmer than the first, sharing family news and expressing delight about Nora's marriage and pregnancy. Reading between the lines, Nora sensed her sister's own dissatisfaction with the constraints of Boston society, though Elizabeth didn't state it directly. "I think she envies your freedom," Adam observed after reading this second letter. "Perhaps," Nora agreed. "Elizabeth always chafed against father's rules more than I did, though she was better at hiding it." She sighed, looking out at the mountains visible from their porch. "I wish she could see this place for herself." "Maybe someday she will," Adam said, his hand covering hers on her rounded belly. "Family has a way of finding each other eventually." August brought scorching heat that dried the grasslands to golden brown and made Nora's final weeks of pregnancy especially uncomfortable. Adam rearranged his work schedule to be closer to the house during the day, worried about leaving her alone as her time approached. Dr. Harrison had agreed to come to the ranch when Nora's labor began, but Adam fretted about the distance from town. "Maybe we should move you into Mrs. Peterson's for the last few weeks," he suggested. "Be closer to the doctor." "And farther from you," Nora countered, determined to have their child born in their home. "Dr. Harrison says I'm healthy, the baby is positioned correctly, and everything looks normal. Miguel can ride for the doctor when the time comes." Reluctantly, Adam agreed, but he insisted on having Sarah Jenkins, the school teacher who had some midwifery experience, come stay with them for the final week. Sarah arrived with her cheerful practicality, helping Nora prepare the nursery and offering reassurance about the coming birth. "First babies often take their time," she told Nora as they folded tiny clothes sewn during the winter evenings. "But you're strong and healthy. You'll do fine." Labor began on a hot August night, awakening Nora from a restless sleep with a sharp pain that left no doubt about its meaning. Adam was instantly alert, calling for Sarah while helping Nora through the first contractions. Miguel rode for Dr. Harrison immediately, the pounding of hoofbeats fading into the night as Nora focused on the work her body had begun. Sarah took charge with calm efficiency, directing Adam to heat water, bring clean linens, and support Nora through increasingly intense contractions. The hours blurred together for Nora: pain, rest, encouragement from Sarah and Adam, the gradual progress of bringing new life into the world. Dr. Harrison arrived just before dawn, his presence adding another layer of reassurance. As the sun rose over the eastern plains, Nora gave a final tremendous push, and their son entered the world with a lusty cry that brought tears to Adam's eyes. Dr. Harrison placed the infant on Nora's chest, where tiny hands immediately grasped his mother's finger with surprising strength. "He's perfect," Adam whispered, his voice choked with emotion as he gently touched his son's dark head. "Absolutely perfect." They named him William Thomas Owens, William for Adam's father, Thomas for Nora's grandfather, the only family member who had shown her unconditional love. As Nora nursed her son for the first time, the connection to past generations felt tangible, As if a circle had been completed, the news of William's birth spread quickly through the community. Visitors came bearing gifts, hand-knitted blankets, wooden toys, practical items for baby care. Mrs. Peterson organized a meal rotation so that Nora wouldn't have to worry about cooking during her recovery. Miguel's wife, Elena, came daily to help with household chores, cooing over little William in a mixture of English and Spanish. Nora wrote to Elizabeth with the news, enclosing a tiny sketch of William that Adam had surprisingly drawn. The response came more quickly this time, a joyful letter accompanied by a silver cup engraved with the baby's initials, a family tradition for new births. More surprisingly, a separate note was enclosed, addressed in a shaky hand that Nora recognized as her mother's. The message was brief but heartfelt. "My dear daughter, I rejoice in your happiness and the birth of my grandson. Please forgive my silence. With love, Mother." There was no mention of Nora's father, but the note itself represented a thawing that Nora had not dared to hope for. She showed it to Adam with hands that trembled slightly. "Family," he said again, but this time the word held only warmth. "Our son has brought them back to you." "Not all the way," Nora cautioned, thinking of her father's continued refusal to acknowledge her. "And perhaps never completely." Adam gathered her and William into his arms. "Then what they miss is their loss. We have everything that matters right here." The autumn of 1879 brought changes to the ranch. Adam's expanded herd meant a larger roundup, more cattle to drive to market, a substantial increase in their income. The addition to the house was completed not just a nursery for William, but an expanded kitchen that gave Nora more space for cooking and preserving the garden's harvest. William thrived, growing from a newborn who seemed all eyes and grasping hands to a chubby infant who watched the world with intense curiosity. His first smile, directed at Adam during a morning feeding, reduced his father to such delighted incoherence that Nora laughed until tears came. "I never thought I could love someone so completely," Adam confessed one evening as they watched William sleep in his cradle. "It's terrifying and wonderful all at once." "I know exactly what you mean," Nora replied, leaning against her husband's strong shoulder. "He's part of both of us, yet entirely his own person already." As winter approached again, bringing the prospect of isolated days at the ranch, Nora found herself looking forward to the quiet season with her small family. The previous winter had been about adjusting to marriage and ranch life. This one would be about watching their son discover the world. The correspondence with her mother and sister continued, gradually becoming more natural and affectionate. Elizabeth sent small gifts for William and news of Boston society that now seemed like dispatches from a foreign country to Nora. Her mother's notes remained brief, but increasingly warm, often including memories from Nora's childhood that suggested a desire to reconnect with the daughter she had let go. There was still no word from or about her father, but Nora found that the pain of his rejection had dulled. She had a family now, not just Adam and William, but the community that had embraced her, the ranch hands who respected her as the boss's wife, the neighboring families who exchanged visits and assistance. The first snow fell in early December, transforming the ranch into a wonderland of white that fascinated William. Adam held him at the window, narrating the beauty of their land as if the 5-month-old could understand every word. Nora watched them, her heart full, marveling at how complete her life felt now. That evening, as they sat before the fire with William sleeping peacefully between them, Adam took her hand. "I've been thinking about what you said when you first showed me Elizabeth's letter, that being disowned was the best thing that happened to you." Nora nodded, remembering. "It's true. If my father hadn't cast me out, I would never have come west, never have met you, never have known what it means to build a life with someone who truly values me. Do you ever regret it? The break with your family, I mean." Nora considered the question seriously. "I regret the pain it caused, especially for my mother and sister. But no, I don't regret the outcome." She squeezed his hand. "This life with you, it's more than I ever dreamed possible." Adam's smile was tender as he leaned over their sleeping son to kiss her. "When you stepped off that stagecoach looking so lost, I had no idea you'd become the center of my world. And when you stopped to help a stranger pick up her scattered belongings, you couldn't have known you were meeting your wife," Nora replied with an answering smile. "Actually," Adam admitted with a hint of mischief, "I had hopes from that first moment. There was something about you, a strength beneath the vulnerability, a determination despite your circumstances. You saw all that in a bedraggled Eastern woman who couldn't even manage her own valise." Nora asked skeptically. "I saw a woman I wanted to know better," Adam corrected. "The rest came with time." He gently stroked William's cheek as the baby stirred slightly. "And now look what we've built together." As the fire crackled and snow fell gently outside their window, Nora looked at her husband and son, the family she had found when her own cast her out. Life on the frontier wasn't easy. There would be challenges ahead, hard work, possibly even hardships. But she would face them with Adam at her side and their children William and perhaps others to come as their legacy. "I love you," she said simply, the words carrying the weight of all she felt: gratitude, joy, commitment, hope. "And I love you," Adam replied, his blue eyes reflecting the firelight and something deeper, the bond that had grown between them from that first meeting to this quiet moment of contentment. "Always will." William sighed in his sleep, one tiny hand reaching out as if to hold them both. Nora and Adam exchanged a smile over their son's head, their fingers intertwining, a family complete, a circle unbroken, a love that had begun with simple kindness on a dusty street and grown into something enduring as the mountains that watched over their home. In the years that followed, the Owens ranch prospered, expanding as Adam acquired additional land and improved his cattle stock. William grew from an infant to a sturdy toddler who delighted in following his father around the ranch, solemnly attempting to help with chores far beyond his capabilities. Nora watched their son's development with wonder, documenting his first words, first steps, and growing personality in letters to her mother and sister. The correspondence with Boston continued, gradually healing some of the wounds of the past. Elizabeth visited during the summer of 1881, arriving on the stagecoach much as Nora had 3 years earlier, but with an entirely different reception. The sisters embraced tearfully on Colorado City's Main Street before Adam drove them back to the ranch, where 2-year-old William greeted his aunt with shy curiosity that soon blossomed into adoration. During Elizabeth's month-long stay, Nora saw her sister transform from a proper Boston lady into someone more relaxed, more genuine. Elizabeth rode with Adam to check fence lines, helped Nora preserve summer vegetables, and spent hours playing with William in the creek that ran through the property. "I understand now," Elizabeth said on her last evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in spectacular colors. "Why you've never considered coming back east. This place becomes part of you." "It does," Nora agreed. "Or perhaps it allows you to become who you truly are without society's constraints." The sisters exchanged a look of perfect understanding. Before Elizabeth departed, she hugged Nora fiercely. "I'll be back," she promised, "and perhaps next time I won't leave." That autumn brought news from Boston that their father had suffered a stroke. Though not fatal, it had left him weakened and, according to their mother's letter, changed in spirit if not in opinions. There was still no direct communication from him to Nora, but his objections to his wife's correspondence had apparently ceased. "You want to go east?" Adam asked when Nora shared the news. To see him make peace if possible, Nora considered the question carefully. "No," she decided finally. "If he wants reconciliation, he knows where to find me. I won't uproot our life to seek approval I no longer need." She touched her stomach, where a new life had just begun to make its presence known. "Our family is here now." Their daughter, Elizabeth Elena Owens, was born in the spring of 1882, another home birth. But this time with less anxiety and more confidence on everyone's part. William, not quite 3, regarded his sister with a mixture of fascination and wariness, eventually deciding that she was acceptable despite her inability to play horses properly. Life fell into a new rhythm with 2 children. The ranch continued to prosper, allowing Adam to hire additional hands, which in turn gave him more time with his family. Nora managed the household with growing skill, finding unexpected satisfaction in creating a home that reflected their values, comfortable but not ostentatious, welcoming to all who came in peace, filled with books and music and laughter. The community around them changed as well. Colorado City grew, attracting more families, more businesses. The railroad came through in 1883, bringing increased prosperity and connecting the once isolated town more firmly to the wider world. Dr. Harrison, getting on in years, took on a young partner from Denver. The school expanded, necessitating a second teacher to assist Sarah Jenkins, who had married the town's banker the previous year. Through all these changes, the bond between Nora and Adam deepened. The passionate love of their early marriage matured into something equally strong but more complex, a partnership built on mutual respect, shared goals, and the daily choice to support each other through life's challenges. There were difficulties, of course. A harsh winter in 1884 threatened the herd and strained resources. William developed a serious illness that same year, causing weeks of anxiety before he recovered fully. Adam's expansion plans occasionally created financial stress that required careful management. But for each challenge, they found strength in each other, and in the family they had created not just their children, but the extended family of ranch hands, neighbors, and friends who formed their community. Miguel and Alina's children played with William and little Beth. The Petersons from the neighboring ranch came for Sunday dinners. Dr. Harrison and his wife became regular visitors, the doctor taking a grandfatherly interest in the Owens children. In 1885, a letter arrived that Nora had never expected to receive. The handwriting was shaky but recognizable, her father's distinctive script that she remembered from childhood, watching him sign important documents in his study. With trembling hands, she opened it, Adam at her side offering silent support. "My daughter," it began, the formal address containing 7 years of unacknowledged relationship. What followed was not exactly an apology, for Jonathan Langley was not a man accustomed to admitting error, but it was an overture and expression of regret for missed years, for a grandson and granddaughter he had never met, for a daughter whose happiness he had not witnessed. "I find myself in the twilight of life," he wrote, "reconsidering decisions made in pride and anger. If you could find it in your heart to reply, I would be grateful." Nora read the letter twice before folding it carefully and placing it in her lap. "He's dying," she said quietly. "Not immediately, perhaps, but he feels his mortality." Adam took her hand. "Will you answer?" "Yes," Nora decided. "Not for his sake, not even for mine, but for William and Beth. They should know their grandfather, at least through letters, before it's too late." Her reply was measured, neither cold nor overly emotional, acknowledging the breach without dwelling on blame, opening a door without rushing through it. She enclosed a daguerreotype of the children that had been taken in town the previous month, William standing straight and serious, Beth seated with her doll, both dressed in their Sunday best. The correspondence that followed was cautious on both sides, gradually warming as Nora's father responded to stories about his grandchildren with increasing interest. By Christmas of that year, the exchange had progressed enough that small gifts arrived from Boston: a carved wooden train for William, a porcelain doll for Beth, and for Nora, her mother's pearl earrings that she had left behind in her hasty departure. "It's not complete forgiveness," Nora told Adam as they prepared for bed on Christmas night, the earrings gleaming softly in her palm. "But it's a beginning." Adam drew her into his arms. "Family is complicated," he observed, "but I'm glad they're finding their way back to you or you to them." Spring of 1886 brought a letter that changed everything: an invitation from Nora's parents for the entire Owens family to visit Boston during the summer. Her father's health had stabilized, but his doctors advised against travel, making it impossible for the Langleys to come west. "We don't have to go," Adam said when Nora showed him the invitation, "or I could stay with the ranch while you take the children." But Nora shook her head. "If we go together. You're my husband, the father of my children. My parents need to know you to understand the life I've chosen." She hesitated. "But the ranch? Miguel can manage for a month," Adam decided after consideration. "He's practically foreman already, and Thomas has been with us long enough to handle any emergencies." He smiled at her concerned expression. "The ranch won't fall apart without us for a few weeks, Nora, and this might be the only chance for your parents to meet their grandchildren." So it was decided. Preparations for the journey east consumed the early summer-appropriate clothing for 4 Western transplants to survive Boston society, arrangements for the ranch's management, travel plans that would take them by train across the continent. The children approached the adventure with differing attitudes. William, now 7, was excited about the train journey but suspicious of these unknown grandparents who had never been part of his life. Beth, at 4, was simply excited by the prospect of new experiences. As their departure approached, Nora found herself increasingly anxious. Would her parents accept Adam, a man so different from the society gentleman they had envisioned for their daughter? Would they try to influence William and Beth toward Eastern values and attitudes? Would the gulf between Nora's past and present prove impossible to bridge? Adam, sensing her concern, reassured her with his characteristic steadiness. "We go as we are," he said simply. "Not pretending to be something we're not. If they can accept that, good. If not, we haven't lost anything." The journey east was an education in itself. Neither William nor Beth had been further from home than Denver, and each new state, each changing landscape, each bustling city they passed through widened their world. Adam, too, saw the country beyond Colorado with fresh eyes, though he admitted to Nora in private that nothing they passed matched the beauty of their mountain home. Boston, when they finally arrived after nearly a week of travel, seemed both familiar and strange to Nora. The streets where she had grown up felt narrower, the buildings more crowded, the pace more hectic than she remembered. Or perhaps she had simply grown accustomed to Western spaces and rhythms. The Langley home on Beacon Hill stood as imposing as ever, a 4-story townhouse of red brick with white trim, its brass fixtures gleaming in the summer sun. Nora hesitated at the foot of the steps, memories washing over her. Adam's hand at her back provided the courage to move forward. Elizabeth opened the door before they could knock, embracing her sister with tearful joy before kneeling to greet her niece and nephew. "You've both grown so much since I saw you last," she exclaimed, then rose to shake Adam's hand warmly. "Welcome to Boston, all of you." The reunion with her parents awaited in the formal parlor, a room unchanged from Nora's childhood, with its silk wallpaper, heavy draperies, and uncomfortable furniture designed more for appearance than comfort. Her mother rose immediately, moving with surprising quickness despite her advanced years to embrace first Nora, then the children. Her father remained seated in his wing chair near the fireplace, age and illness having diminished his once commanding presence. But his eyes, the same deep brown that Nora had inherited, were sharp as they took in his daughter's family. "So," he said after formal introductions had been made, his gaze settling on Adam, "you're the cowboy who stole my daughter." A tense silence followed, broken by Adam's unexpected chuckle. "With all due respect, sir, your daughter's not the kind of woman who gets stolen. She makes her own choices." Jonathan Langley stared at Adam for a long moment, then a reluctant smile tugged at his mouth. "Evidently so." He gestured to the children, who were standing uncertainly beside Nora. "And these are my grandchildren." William stepped forward with the directness that was so like his father. "I'm William Thomas Owens, sir. I'm 7, and I can ride my own horse and help Pa with the calves." Beth, not to be outdone, curtsied as Elizabeth had taught her by letter. "I'm Elizabeth Alina Owens. I'm 4 1/4. Something in the old man's face softened. "Alina, that's not a family name. It's for Miguel's wife," Beth explained seriously. "She helped when I was born and makes the best candy." Nora watched her father absorb the casual reference to a Mexican woman as family. The simple acceptance in her daughter's voice of a world where bloodlines mattered less than kindness and shared experiences. "I see," he said finally, then surprised everyone by holding out his hands to the children. "Would you like to see what toys your grandmother and I have gathered for your visit?" As the children moved forward, their natural resilience overcoming initial shyness, Nora exchanged a glance with Adam. The first hurdle had been cleared not with dramatic reconciliation, but with a simple acceptance of present reality. The month in Boston unfolded more smoothly than Nora had dared hope. Her father, while never directly apologizing for the past, demonstrated through actions a desire to know and understand the family his daughter had created. He listened with surprising interest to Adam's explanations of ranch management, recognizing the business acumen that had allowed the Owens Ranch to prosper. Nora's mother blossomed in the presence of her grandchildren, showing them the gardens behind the house, reading them the same stories she had once read to Nora, teaching Beth simple piano pieces on the grand piano in the music room. William was introduced to the family library, where his grandfather's collection of maps particularly fascinated him. There were awkward moments, certainly. Dinner parties with old family friends who regarded Adam with barely concealed curiosity or condescension. Comments about the children's Western accents or mannerisms. Questions about when Nora might come home for good. But there were wonderful moments, too. Elizabeth, now unofficially engaged to a progressive young professor she had met through literary circles, confided to Nora her plans to break with tradition and move west after marriage. "Thomas feels stifled here too," she explained. "We're thinking of Denver or perhaps even Colorado Springs. Not too far from you, but with opportunities for his academic work." Their father, overhearing this conversation, surprised both daughters by saying gruffly, "You'll do well wherever you settle, Elizabeth. Your sister has proven that happiness doesn't depend on geography." As their time in Boston drew to a close, Nora found moments to reconnect with her past visiting childhood haunts, introducing Adam to the few old friends who had kept in touch through Elizabeth, showing her children the places that had shaped their mother. Yet with each passing day, she felt more certain that their true home waited in Colorado. On their final evening, after the children had been put to bed, the adults gathered in Jonathan Langley's study, a room Nora had rarely been permitted to enter as a child. Her father, looking tired but more at peace than she could remember, poured brandy for himself and Adam, sherry for the ladies. "I have something to discuss with you all," he said once they were settled. "A business matter, but also a family one." He explained that he had been putting his affairs in order, preparing for the inevitable though not imminent end. "I've made provisions for all of you," he continued, addressing Adam and Nora directly. "An inheritance that acknowledges you as my daughter and your children as my grandchildren." Nora started to protest. They didn't need Boston money, had built their life without it, but her father raised a hand to stop her. "It's not charity, Nora. It's your birthright." His voice softened. "And perhaps some small atonement for years lost through my pride." It was as close to an apology as Jonathan Langley would ever come. Nora reached for Adam's hand, drawing strength from his silent support. "Thank you, Father," she said simply. The journey back to Colorado was quieter than the trip east, as all four Owens processed the experiences of the past month. The children chattered about their grandparents, their Aunt Elizabeth, the wonders of Boston, while also expressing eagerness to return to their friends and familiar surroundings. Adam was thoughtful, absorbing the glimpses he had been given of Nora's early life, understanding better the world she had left behind. "Your father is a complicated man," he observed as they watched the landscapes of the Midwest roll past their train window. "Proud, stubborn, set in his ways." "Like someone else I know," Nora teased gently, squeezing his hand. Adam smiled at that. "Maybe so, but I think I understand him better now, and why it was so hard for him to accept your choices." "He respects you," Nora said. "I could see it growing throughout our visit. Not just as my husband, but as a man who's built something valuable through his own efforts." "And he loves you," Adam added, "in his way." Returning to the ranch felt like exhaling after holding a breath too long. The familiar mountains, the clean Colorado air, the open spaces all welcomed them home. Miguel and Alina had kept everything running smoothly, and the children ran to greet their friends with stories of their adventures. That night, after settling the tired children in their own beds, Nora and Adam sat on their porch in the gathering twilight. The day's heat was dissipating, bringing the comfortable coolness of a Colorado summer evening. In the distance, the mountains stood eternal against the darkening sky. "I was afraid," Nora admitted, breaking a companionable silence, "when we went to Boston, afraid that seeing my old life might make me doubt the choices I've made." Adam turned to her, his face serious in the fading light. "And did it?" "No," Nora said with absolute certainty. "It only confirmed what I already knew. This is where I belong with you, with our children, on this land we've built together." She leaned against his shoulder. "When my family disowned me, I thought my life was over. I couldn't see then that it was just beginning." Adam wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer. "I'm grateful every day that you stepped off that stagecoach in Colorado City, that you were brave enough to start again. And I'm grateful you stopped to help a stranger who couldn't even manage her own valise," Nora replied, echoing their earlier conversation with a smile he felt rather than saw in the gathering darkness. As night settled fully around them, stars emerging in the vast Colorado sky, Nora reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From the sheltered daughter of Boston society to the capable partner of a Western rancher, From a woman defined by family connections to one who had helped create a family based on love and mutual respect. The loss that had seemed unbearable 7 years ago had led to gains. She could never have imagined a husband who valued her mind as well as her heart. Children growing up with both freedom and responsibility. Work that gave genuine satisfaction. A community where she was appreciated for her contributions rather than her background. "We should go in," Adam said eventually, though he made no move to rise. "Early start tomorrow." "In a minute," Nora replied, content to remain in this peaceful moment a little longer. "I'm just thinking how fortunate I am." Adam's kiss was gentle on her temple. "That makes two of us." Together they watched the moon rise over their land, their home, the life they had built from choice rather than obligation. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them as they had faced all others side by side. A family forged not from blood alone but from love freely given and gratefully received.